It's a lot of questions in one. So I think the future for impact investing, if you asked me that question 6 weeks ago, I might have had a slightly different answer. But the answer that we have is actually the pandemic actually demonstrates a greater need for impact investing as opposed to less. And I'd argue it on this basis. What we realized, and the pandemic has helped to highlight, and this is actually going to be the subject of our newsletter that will go out in the next couple of days, is that the system that we were operating in, the traditional capitalist system, was flawed in so many ways, but it was barely tolerable or manageable. We had charities and governments and organizations and individuals helping to essentially fill in some of the cracks in that. But what we've discovered through this pandemic, the frontline impact of COVID-19 is going to be so massive, so huge, that it's exposed all the frailties, all the fissures, all the challenges in that system that have been glossed over. And so what it really means for us from an impact investing standpoint is, if we need to remake that system, which we'll need to do, why not make it in a different way, that we're not perpetuating the income inequality, the lack of access, the racism or discrimination, the marginalized communities? Why not remake it in a way that creates better social cohesion, better social benefit, better access, as opposed to merely replicating what was a flawed system in the first place? And so this is our opportunity. So where does impact investing play a role in that? It plays a role because the movement of more capital from not so much governments, not so much foundations, which need a role to play, but they're now focused on the immediacy of the response to deal with the crisis. But what does that post-COVID world look like? Well, if we can, in fact, focus on impact investing as one of many market-based solutions that can play a role of moving more capital, now we've got a multi-party collaboration to try to deal with the systemic issues that existed, but were actually not on our radar until COVID-19 escalated and elevated those. So I think we've got a great opportunity for impact investing. What you've seen in the last 6 weeks, if you look at some of the more interest in certainly in ESG, more capital flows in ESG funds, more movement towards SRI or responsible investing, because the other aspect of that, we believe that had you been invested in an impact portfolio instead of traditional investing, you would have done better in terms of a lower loss on your portfolio, because the companies we are invested in are in fact companies that have greater resilience, because they focus on not only the ESG factors, but looking at what's good for community, what's good for society, what's good for the environment. So we think there's a more compelling value proposition from a return standpoint, a lower risk proposition, and also an opportunity to have impact investing be part and parcel of a toolkit that's used to redesign the system so we don't perpetuate the same fundamental flaws that existed under traditional capitalism. I hope I answered your 3 questions in that response.